Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal, where, as you can see, I'm joined by a slightly ill James Benge. He's still feeling the effects somewhat from partying like he's still 18 at Glastonbury for the last week or so. But he is here. He has joined me. He is back after his week-long hiatus last time. How you doing, James? How are you feeling? How are you feeling, first of all?
Yeah, pretty much dead on my feet. It's been sort of getting steadily worse since Monday, where I was sort of. Anyone that's been to Glastonbury will know what I mean, or anyone that's been to a music festival. And it was fantastic, phenomenal, great vibes, great weather, great acts. Even if I did have to see a bit of Coldplay. Reluctantly, I then managed to drag my wife to Jessie Ware. So I could do a whole podcast on Glastonbury, but I suspect our listeners.
Now I'm going to stop you there. You've got it. I know that's not your thing, but that is quite a spectacle. Coldplay on the Saturday night under the lights at Glastonbury. It was quite the spectacle. I'm not a massive Coldplay fan, but you know, for a closing set on a Saturday night where you want to feel the love, and it was quite the spectacle. It was certainly a lot better than the headliner on Sunday to a pretty empty field on the Pyramid stage. They got that so wrong, that scheduling. I felt sorry for her, but yeah, scheduling there is just, that did not work at all.
I mean, they do some very weird scheduling things at Glastonbury. We got to Sugar Babes 2 acts early. If anyone's into slightly weird time signatures, Squid, I discovered them. We got there early because I was just like, this place is going to be full. And yeah, it was. My friends, I didn't go to Avril Lavigne. I went to see Janelle Monáe. But, you know, my friends were like, we could hardly move in Avril. And then SZA, yeah, a little bit. Maybe too soon, and I think maybe a sort of Glastonbury crowd that's in its sort of late 20s, 30s is maybe not her target audience. I was at the National. I hugged lead singer Matt Berninger. That's probably my highlight of the weekend. He does the thing where he goes off into the crowd, and with what little energy I have.
I watched him go off into the crowd. So if I was actually paying more attention, I might have actually seen him hug
I've checked.
Oh, you can't see you. That's why I didn't know.
You can see me at the last dinner party where I'm sort of deliberately getting in the way of all the 16-year-old girls because I adore that band so much.
Oh,
yeah. It was brilliant. And yeah, shout out to Little Sims as well. I know she's a gooner, so she probably watches this. If you do watch this, Sims, come on the show. Can we do that, Charles? You'd be up for that, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't say no. I'm sure we could do that. I'm sure you'd have to take the lead on it. But yeah, you got great weather as well. Unbelievable. You got great weather. It was it was a lot of fun to watch. It would have killed me. I mean, I've never done Glastonbury. I've done plenty of music festivals, all mainly dance music festivals across Europe, and each and every one I've crawled out of at the end of it and wanted to die the next week or so. So I know your pain, but I mean, I was a lot younger then. I can't even imagine doing that right now. Well, I couldn't do it now. So I don't know. But then saying that, you are about 25 years younger than me at the moment. So
hardly. I turned 35 this year. It's devastating for me. I don't think I'm going to make it as a professional footballer.
Were you one of the people huddled around Louis Tomlinson's TV that he'd set up on the campsite to watch the England game?
I have a much better story than that. So come out Janelle Monáe dying for a loo break, and get my phone out immediately. Janelle Monáe was the act of the weekend, but I've still been, especially maybe because she was so good while I was following Twitter and England being dreadful. Come out from my loo break, open the phone. There's Kyle Walker, ball in hand, ready for his throw in, 95th minute. And the first bit of that game I saw was Jude Bellingham's overhead kick.
Wow.
And then had to find the wife. Pretty much the second bit I saw was on someone else's phone as we were heading to see Romy at the Woodsy stage, was Harry Kane's goal as well. So what's everyone worried about? He's coming home.
That's the way to watch it. You didn't have to endure the 95 minutes that we all had to endure. I'm genuinely not sure I've been angrier watching a football match. Definitely not an England match in my life. Just how bad that performance was, and the lack of changes, the lack of anything. I was just like screaming at the TV. And yeah, you are very, very lucky you didn't have to endure that, because it was so frustrating. But fingers crossed. All I'm holding on to now is that the way that finished just somehow sparks them into life to get them playing even remotely like we know that they can play. And, you know, sometimes moments in football change everything, don't they? And
Yeah.
think Gerrard against Olympiacos way back when Liverpool went on to win the Champions League that season when they're about to go out. And, you know, just things like that, moments, brilliance, individual moments can change anything. And I'm kind of, pinning my hopes on that. Yeah, God, it was really
what forlorn hopes they are. I have watched the game back since, and good God,
unless they play well, unless, you know, somehow they manage to find some form from somewhere, Switzerland will destroy England on Saturday. But again, I'm just holding out hope that this suddenly clicks them into the gear and they will start to find form. Sounds like it's going to go 3 at the back, actually, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
How on earth, though, did you manage in the middle of Glastonbury to get out your phone and get a connection to watch football? I mean, I was sitting in the Emirates, there's 60,000 people, and it's impossible to get anything on your phone at that time. I can even imagine how hard it must be at Glastonbury.
Well, I mean, as I say, I was at Janelle Monáe, not Avril Lavigne, so the crowds were a little bit smaller. It comes and goes a bit. I have to say, if you find the right spot, you can watch Ukraine 0, Belgium 0 when you ought to be listening to something very significant political conversations at Speaker's Corner, like my friends wanted to. I was just there being like, yeah. Oh, I'll tell you, Ukraine are in. Was it Ukraine? I was like, Belgium in trouble here. Yeah, it works all right. I did see Louis Tomlinson taking things down afterwards. Unfortunately, I didn't see any of the sort of many gooners that were there at the festival. And one final thing to say on Glastonbury: if you ever need proof of how massive Arsenal Football Club are, I saw about 3 Man United kits, maybe 2 or 3 Liverpool kits, which is remarkable because people that are there will tell you a lot of Liverpudlians got their tickets this year, and thousands of Arsenal shirts, or hundreds, at least over 100 Arsenal shirts, I would say.
Well, there for Louis Dunford. You see his performance. It was like you'd walked into the middle of the North Bank or something. It was just it was in the left field arena stage, whatever it was, and it was just it's just Arsenal fans absolutely everywhere, including Leah Williamson, who was there in her Arsenal shirt as well. So,
I didn't want to go there, Charles. I didn't want to get spotted. You know, I didn't want to make it about me.
I'll tell you what, you did get spotted because I'm going to bring up a question. I'm going to bring up a quick question on it in a minute. So you did get spotted, in fact.
I want to know what time this
but
is.
Whoever spotted you didn't build up the nerves to come over and say, hello, I'm you're James. But you did get spotted. Right, let's talk about Arsenal, shall we?
We should.
And we should talk about it on Inside Arsenal Extra Time. Lots of transfer stuff going on at the moment. Obviously, Riccardo Calafiori is absolutely dominating the headlines. We will talk about him a little bit. But James Ollie over at ESPN has done a really good interview with Mikel Arteta that's gone out today, obviously building up to the US tour. And it's down into the description below if you guys want to go and read it. If you haven't yet, I have retweeted it on my social media as well. So it's really good. There's lots covered about transfers, the tour, Marbella, everything last season, you know, how he's recovered from how last season ended. So there's loads to discuss. But I want to talk quickly about this is what he has to say about his contract. James asked him if there was any update. He said, no, there is no update at the moment. The thing hasn't changed. The thing that hasn't changed is how happy I am and how valued I feel and how much I love representing this club. He was then asked, are you expecting it to be resolved before the start of the season? He says, things happen in a natural way and our relationship is good. That it's so good that I don't predict any issues, but things have to develop in the right way and it will happen. So obviously still no confirmation. We know that talks are ongoing and everyone is hopeful. And I can't imagine there is a way that this doesn't get done. But he sounds, obviously, without all but confirming it, the fact he's saying doesn't predict any issues, it will happen. I mean, James did go on also to ask about, you know, any new signings, you know, would like to know what's going on and stuff like that. And so it is quite important that things get done pretty quickly. Are you surprised it hasn't happened yet or not? I mean, at the end of last season, I figured this was something that there would be quite a lot of importance placed on just to get it done, to ensure there's no uncertainty for any new signings. So I'm perhaps a little bit surprised that it hasn't been done yet. But then I do also think, well, he's been away on holiday. He's only just got back, and it will happen at some point soon. Yeah,
I mean, I'd probably take the latter of those viewpoints. I mean, I know that everyone sort of ended the season with that determination, and it sort of shone through from Mikel in this piece. I know we've got our own interview with Mikel going live tomorrow. We had an interview with Martin Ødegaard as well. I think all of them are sort of already picked up the baton of determination for next season. But I think sometimes you can only feel that way when you take a moment to reflect and take time to just think about where you're at. And obviously the guys have had that, guys like Arteta who've taken a holiday. Because I don't worry what it says to signings, because everything Arteta's said and done, not just in this interview. I mean, if we go back to probably the one time where you might have had the sort of inkling of a jitter when Barcelona or people close to Barcelona put out those links with Arteta and potential vacancy at the Camp Nou, and he was incandescent with fury at being linked with his boyhood club, maybe one of the few clubs in the world you could imagine would hold a great emotional pull for him that he might move to. I don't think any sort of new signings or anyone needs convincing that Mikel Arteta is in this Arsenal project for, as long a long haul as you can have in the post-Wenger and Ferguson age. So I'm actually inclined to take him at his word on this. I think it will come when it comes. I would be surprised if that's not before the start of the season. Especially as, the executive team will all sort of be gathering together, including Stan and Josh, I suspect, when they're out on the West Coast in a few weeks. And wouldn't surprise me if that's where it all gets nailed down and we hear about it maybe in late July, early August.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an importance, isn't there, to getting it done sooner rather than later. Obviously, that is quite an obvious statement to make, but when it does come to any potential new arrivals and talks and stuff like that, especially if you're competing for these players with other people, and Mikel's such a pull now, I would say, across Europe. Players want to come and play for Mikel Arteta. I mean, we saw it Declan Rice, didn't we, last season? He admitted it himself. It was such a huge part of him choosing Arsenal over Man City, was wanting to work with Arteta because he'd heard so much about what it's like to play for Arsenal and work under him at the moment. And so you do want it sorted sooner rather than later, just to ensure that there is no uncertainty whatsoever, because you just don't want anything to rock the boat. Because if you're going to go up against Man City and you're going to beat Man City, everything needs to be working, doesn't it? Everything has to be going in the right direction. You don't want any uncertainty, especially when it comes to the man at the very, very top of it all, who is basically driving the ship. And so, yeah, I do think it is a really important thing to get done. I'm sure, like you say, that I imagine before the start of the season, I'd be very, very, very surprised if it hasn't happened. And we're talking about transfers, and Riccardo Calafiori, player that I have to admit I didn't know really anything about whatsoever until the Euros. He's that classic Euros breakthrough star in a very poor Italian team, but he was the one shining light of it. I would hazard a guess, and I don't know this is fact, but I know I'm utterly convinced that that this would have been someone that Arsenal have scouted long before the Euros. There's no way they're suddenly just turning on their TV screen, seeing him play well in the group stages, and have made this move to sign him. He's obviously someone they've tracked for a while, and the Euros have just kind of cemented their opinion on him. At the time of recording this, it's not done yet. It's, as far as I'm aware, there's not been a bid accepted yet or anything like that, but talks are ongoing, and Arsenal are hopeful that it could get done. And obviously there's wild reports from Italy every hour of new developments on it and everything, but as far as I'm aware, nothing's been done. It's quite funny. Are you surprised that Arsenal's first signing in a summer where all the talk has been on attack could well potentially be a left-sided centre-back? I was going to say, are you surprised? No. Not. This is Mikel Arteta, so no, I'm not surprised at all. But how do you see, if this does end up happening and Arsenal do get this deal over the line for Calafiori? He's just turned 22. What are your immediate thoughts on it, and how it could all sort of play out in terms of the defence and how Arsenal might set up going forward?
I mean, it's intriguing. Like you, I'm not ultra familiar. I mean, of course, at CBS we have Serie A, so I keep sort of watching brief. And Bologna have been one of the great stories of Italian football this season. And I know, my colleagues out who are covering the Italian game have been raving about him all season long. So I have to say, when he sort of popped up at the Euros, I was like, oh, this is kind of what I've been hearing about the quality of the player. In terms of the Arsenal fit, he makes sense. Look, I was told kind of just before the Calafiori news broke that what we should be thinking about is likely signings in the Jorginho, Trossard mould, the sort of players that may not be immediate foundational pieces of the first team, but would be in the sort of first 15 names on the team sheet. And I think wherever Calafiori lands, it seems like that's got to be the vision for him. I'm assuming he's probably going to come in as real competition and potentially even the first choice starting left back. I know that when he was coming through the ranks in Italy, he played a lot at fullback, and you can sort of see in how he plays that hybrid centre back left back role that he would be. I would think he would be able to do that quite comfortably for Arsenal, and we know that was the one position that never had, or one of two maybe positions that never had a nailed down player who must start week in, week out. I know everyone says it, but I wonder what that means for both Kivior and Zinchenko. I mean,
well,
the immediate thought is
really stop. Yeah, we've got a comment here from Connor. He says, "If looking like Calafiori may sign, do you think this means there was never any truth in Arteta wanting a more orthodox left back option like Alphonso Davies, for example?" I never actually thought he was looking for a proper orthodox left back, to be honest. But I think people were putting two and two together. The fact that Ben White was now playing as an inverted role, that maybe that would be the type that they would look for. But you know, with Arteta, it's always going to be a versatile type player rather than pigeonhole position. He says, if he still wants this, I wonder if both Zinchenko and Kivior would both be sold. We may see a Nuno Tierney reintegrated if we don't get any suitable offers. KT unlikely anyway with injury. That's not going to happen. This may seem unlikely as neither are fancied by Arteta, but the first two I mentioned are far more likely to get us some decent money. But just talking about who might well end up going here, like Kivior and Zinchenko are obviously the two ones. You mentioned them there. I don't see a way that if Calafiori signs that those two both stay by the end of the window, one of them hasn't gone. I think it'd be very, very hard. Even just sort of focusing on Kivior more than anyone else at the moment. Just the two of them, their similarities in terms of position where they play, it seems so similar that I think Kivior would surely be earmarked for a potential transfer, especially as we know that there is interest in him from Italian clubs. Do you see a way that he stays if Calafiori signs?
And I mean, no, I think I agree with you.
Someone has to go, surely, if he signs.
You have to make room somehow. And I mean, realistically, you would have 5-6 options to play left back. If Kivior's still there, 4 to play left-sided centre back. I don't necessarily think it would be a given that Kivior would go permanently. I mean, it's Italian, you know, like you say, likely destinations are in Italy. I know AC Milan are very interested, but it may well be, you know, that he wasn't cheap. And if I sort of try and do the maths in my head, what did he came in for?
I can't. It's about 21 million or something.
21 million, and he is contracted until 2028. So when he came in, that's. Ooh. I mean, you need him well over 15 million, I would say, to make around that 15 million mark to make a profit on him. And if that doesn't happen, you may as well loan him out and see what comes there. The only other thing would be if Arteta's view is he's rigidly going to play a more defensive-minded left back, and then maybe you could make the case for Calafiori, Tomiyasu, Kivior all being there. It just seems to me like it would make more sense to have Zinchenko as the alternative option, the one that can invert into midfield. I don't necessarily think there's going to be a great queue of clubs after Zinchenko. It only takes one, and we know there's been links with Bayern Munich. But I mean, it seems to me like the natural decision would be to keep Zinchenko to give you that different option, that player that can play against. I've forgotten who's got promoted this year. Leicester. No, Leicester are quite good, but you know what I mean. Fulham. Pick your team you don't rate and you think Zinchenko could play against, and then for the big games, you have your Calafiori or your Tomiyasu. I mean, the other side of this as well is, someone to rotate with and potentially usurp Gabriel. Hard as that is to believe. I mean, Arsenal are all about getting these sort of players that can really compete, and I think Trossard is the example that people I know have sort of pointed to of we're getting a player that is coming in knowing he's not got a nailed on role, but absolutely will believe they can compete to get into the starting 11 as well.
One player we haven't spoken about in all of that is Jurrien Timber, who, it's really interesting because I just figured Jurrien Timber would be Arsenal's starting left back this season. I have to admit, provided
he was signed to be a right back.
He was signed, but we've not seen him play at right back yet, have we? And the fact that as soon as he even came back from that injury and was playing for the under-21s, he was immediately playing the inverted left back role for the under-21s. It's really interesting because if you got another left back coming in, potentially left back, left centre back, whatever you want to call it, that certainly seems to put another person in front of Timber. I mean, Ben White was so good in the second half last season, playing as that right back role. You know, I can't imagine Timber coming in. So suddenly, a player who you think was probably looked like he was certain to be a starter and a really influential player in the team might well now be, you know, just in the mix again as a almost
maybe
Arteta's
just a sicko and he wants to play 5, 6 at the back. Now he's getting his chance.
I suppose we've just got to also just get out of the mindset of starting 11s as well, don't we? And we really, really do. It's easy to fall back into that of just thinking, oh, starting 11, who's going to be the starter? But maybe there just isn't going to be, and that's the whole plan. Is that there isn't a regimented starting 11. Yes, there's 3 or 4 players in the biggest of games. You kind of know who's going to start where, or maybe 5 or 6 players, or 7. But then others you just don't know, and you know that we've not really had that at Arsenal before, have we? But that's everything I suppose that Arteta and Edu are building towards, is to be in that situation where there is no starting 11, and it's just players equally as good as each other in this really strong squad that you can play against whoever and just bring players out and rotate and just and not be worried about the level of the team dropping when you do that.
He never did that. He's never done that with Gabriel and Saliba, though, has he? And I mean, Pep does it quite a bit with his centre backs. I wonder if there's a willingness to do that, especially when you have the sort of strength and depth that comes with. I mean, then almost every option you would have on the pitch, bar Zinchenko, or in the squad, would be someone that could play at centre back as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think we sort of. I mean, I'm very open to being surprised because the only thing we know for certain is that Arsenal are really interested in Riccardo Calafiori, and it's quite fun, isn't it? Where I think they're almost not having to do sort of whack-a-mole, fix a problem position in a squad, but sort of looking for interesting, talented pieces, and then we get to play the fun sort of Mikel Arteta thing of like, well, how is this all going to fit together? It's a nice jigsaw. It's one of those expensive jigsaws you get from. I mean, maybe even nicer than John Lewis. Maybe you go to Liberty or something and get your jigsaw, and it's got a beautiful pattern. And at the moment, we're still trying to sort of meld the pieces together, but we know it'll look nice at the end, I think.
Well, my wife works with John Lewis, so I don't think there's anything nicer than John Lewis, to be honest. I can possibly plug in any other company on this. Okay, let's quickly flip to the Euros now, shall we? And obviously, we spoke about England being, well, frankly, awful earlier on in the show. We are what day is it? Thursday. We're a couple of days away now from the Switzerland game, which, if you believe what's being said or the noises come out of the England camp today, is that Southgate's seriously considering a back 3 in that game. Of course, there's no Mark Gahey, he's suspended, so it's like, what do you do at centre back without Gahey? And it seems from the reporters on the ground over there that there is a real possibility that he is going to actually shake things up. He's going to go over back 3. He's going to play with Foden and Bellingham as basically 2 10s behind Kane, with wing backs obviously, and then Rice and another in midfield. Walker looked like it's going to be the right-sided centre back as well. So there's a chance that Bukayo, who hasn't had the greatest of tournaments, but no one has in that England team, could well end up playing at left wing back. We saw him play in that position towards the end of the game against Slovakia. What do you make of Bukayo playing there? First of all,
I mean, I don't like it at all, but I think it's what England have to do, whether it's in a 4 or a 3. Like, the great failing of this entire England squad was Gareth Southgate correctly identified how valuable Luke Shaw is for England. And I've been looking at sort of stats from previous tournaments and all that. And, you know, he is the guy that leads in progressive passing, progressive carrying. He's the one that gets England up the pitch. So I totally understand gambling on his fitness in a 26-man squad, but to not take another natural left back, a left-footed player for that position, was criminal. And I can't believe that no one in a position alongside, below, or any level said to Gareth Southgate, can we actually not fit another left back in this squad? I think it may well be what has doomed England, because every time you watch them, you see players, almost all of that front four, and I think Saka maybe is the one that stands out, but almost all of them come to the ball. All of them come central. No one stretches down the left flank like Shaw would. And so who could you get to do that? Bukayo Saka, whether as a left back or a left wing back. I mean, it's a waste of his talents, I think. But I mean, it probably allows you to get Trent Alexander-Arnold on the opposite flank. So it's disappointing, because I think England could be more than like back three, kind of what I suspect may then be something a bit strangulatory, like some of the games at the Euros, and trust their individual talent to win the game. But I mean, I know a lot of Arsenal fans were really angry when Ian Wright said it, but you could, and you should get angry at what Southgate kind of fail to do in naming his squad. But now that the squad's there, it seems to me like it's the best option if Luke Shaw isn't fit for the quarters. And if he's not fit for the quarters, like, he's not going to be ready you can't put him in the semi or the final, can you?
It's mad, isn't it? It is mad. I don't mind him playing left wing back. I didn't like the idea of him playing left back, especially as I thought, if you're going to do that, you may as well just play him on the left side of the attack. If you're going to do that, it's just play him there rather than left back. I mean, left back is just ridiculous. And if you got into the latter stage of that tournament anyway, you couldn't play him at left back. He'd get exposed. I know he's a brilliant footballer. Bukayo can play in any position because he's that good, but top quality right winger now is going to expose Bukayo Saka if he's playing at left back. So I don't like the idea. Left wing back's okay. I don't mind him going for a back three this weekend, because he's got to do something, because what he's doing now is not going to work, and England will go out against Switzerland. I have no doubt in my mind that if he just does what he's done the whole way through the tournament, plays a team that he's played in the same positions, England will lose, and they'll lose convincingly against Switzerland, who look like a very, very good, well-balanced team who will just pick England apart like they did the Italians. So I don't mind him going to a back three. I like the idea of having Foden and Bellingham actually playing behind Kane, and Foden not stuck out wide. I'm really eagerly awaiting Declan Rice versus Granit Xhaka. I think that could be a really interesting battle in the heart of midfield. I mean, Xhaka's just had a fantastic tournament. He's just been superb. I mean, the last 2 years that he's had, the form he's shown in that sort of the last season for Arsenal, well, not even the last season, the last 2 seasons really for Arsenal. But and then Leverkusen as well. You know, there's just not been many better midfielders around Europe in the last 2 years than Granit Xhaka at the level he's performing. It's just been absolutely fantastic. Yeah, that's going to be one hell of a battle. Rice versus Xhaka. I thought Rice played well against Slovakia. He was, especially, he was just on his own, absolutely doing everything by himself. And you know, some things didn't work out, but I don't know how he ran around like that for 120 minutes, just left alone by all of his teammates. It was a one-man band at times. I thought he played well, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting one Saturday. I can't wait for Spain Germany on Friday. That's got penalties written all over it to me. I just got a real feeling that's going to go all the way, that game.
I mean, that's the one that screams game of the tournament. For me, I feel like France versus Portugal is the one that screams penalties after like 2 hours of attritional. How on earth do so many talented footballers deliver so little on the pitch? I know I'm on sort of live blog duties for that game, so I'm already dreading that, followed up by England. But I mean, I think what's so sort of frustrating about the Euros is sort of everything is for once is breaking England's way. I remember, like, I thought England were brilliant in Qatar, and they just had the misfortune to run into one of the 2 or 3 teams that had more talent than them. And like, right now, I don't really know that there is a team that objectively before the Euros we would have said is more talented than England. And even if there were, they're all on the other side of the draw. And you know, I think Gareth Southgate doesn't get anywhere near the credit he deserves for what he did in the first few years of the job. But there's something quite dispiriting about kind of the way it's going wrong, that it's kind of everything that you thought he'd fixed, that the shirt wasn't so heavy, that England players wanted to be there, that the fans and the players were together, that, you know, every once in in a 2-year period, we could all switch off from, you know, inside Arsenal extra time and celebrate the excellence of of Harry Kane and Phil Foden, and now it feels like it's worse than it ever was before Southgate came along. That every time you sort of point out the flaws of someone that isn't from a club, you just cover. You know, if you say, "Oh, Trent Alexander-Arnold may not be the answer in England midfield," Liverpool fans will turn on you. Arsenal fans will turn on Ian Wright for saying Bukayo Saka might be the answer on the left back or whatever. It feels like if we don't win this, it really is back to square one.
Yeah, I mean, the fallout would have been so brutal if they'd lost to Slovakia. If Bellingham hadn't done that, it would have been, it's Iceland all over again, which has been quite full circle, really, when you consider that's where Southgate picked up the pieces from. And then, after sort of the journey going on that trajectory to suddenly plummet back down to and, finish it on Iceland on an Iceland-like defeat, that would have been quite the full circle. Right. Let's move on to some questions and comments now, shall we? And look, first of all, here's one from Ashley. He says, "Hi, James. I saw you knocking about at Glasgow. We were stood near each other for," how do you pronounce her name?
Janelle Monáe.
And the National.
Wonderful.
Was very aware you were off duty, so I didn't say hi, but I was reading Mustafi was returning to Arsenal and we were selling the stadium to ourselves before Janelle came on. That could have made for a fun drunken.
Oh my God.
Chat. So there you go. Ash, you were spotted. Ashley was there, but he didn't come and say hello.
Please do, because when people do, it absolutely infuriates my wife. I'm sure you have the same, don't you? I wouldn't want to use words like celebrity, but there is a sort of minor level of notoriety to guys at our level in this sort of Twitter age, and where we all have YouTube shows and things like that. And it's really, really fun for us when you come and say hello, because it makes, I don't know, maybe it's just me, it makes me feel like a big man.
Makes you feel like a big
someone's going to clip that. It does. It's great. Please come and say hi, because it's also really nice to talk about Arsenal. And if someone had told me that Mustafi was coming back, I would have assumed I'd overindulged the night before.
Yeah, 15 beers down, definitely 100% when that conversation starts. He's just retired, actually, Mustafi, hasn't he? So there's one from Lewis. Says, "Hi guys, with the Champions League changes this year, meaning everyone will be playing more games in the first round stage league, what sort of teams would you be hoping to face? I think last time it seemed great that we had such an easy group, but this did lead to it feeling a bit underwhelming. Due to more games, would you have hope for a similar situation, or would you rather some big names? Personally, I'd like to face PSG or Juventus, massive names, but we can definitely get past them. Would also love a game against Real Madrid to test ourselves against the best." So yeah, this new Champions League format, of course, is coming in. I was playing golf yesterday with Simon Collins, and we were talking about the new Champions League format, and both basically admitting that neither of us had a clue still, even though we're only a couple of months away, in terms of what it actually is going to be and how it pans out. But you got, obviously, there's still 4 pots, isn't there? And then you've got, how many teams is it overall now? 24? What is it?
30 something.
30 something. And the first, is it the top 8 goes through automatically to the knockouts, and then teams 9 to 28
16.
or something?
9 to 16, I think.
No, it's more than that. It's more than
that. Here we
go.
I got it for you. Top 8 sides in the league will qualify automatically. You're right. 9 to 24 are in a playoff.
They go into the playoffs, and the rest go out, and they don't drop into Europa League or anything like that. I was looking at Arsenal going to be in pot 2 of this group. I was looking, pot 1 is going to be Man City, Bayern, Madrid, PSG, Liverpool, Inter, Dortmund, Leipzig, and Barca. Then the 7 more spots still need to be filled in terms of qualification. It looks like, I think Aston Villa are going to be in pot 4 alongside Monaco, Stuttgart, Bologna. Pot 3 going to have Celtic, Feyenoord, Sporting, and PSV, and there's going to be others in there as well. So, what sort of group, and what you do?
It's no groups, are there?
It's not groups. You play 8 teams, don't you?
2 from each pot, I think.
2 from each pot, and but you only play the teams once, so it's not home and away or anything like that.
Oh,
it's really complicated, and I haven't got my head around it. I think I'll probably sit down and properly work it out when the draw is made. I think I'll start to decide. But in terms of what sort of teams I would like to face, I would like to have a big early game, I think, because I did admit it was brilliant being back in the group last season, but it did feel a little bit underwhelming, that group. I agree. There wasn't one when you went to it and it was like, this is a big Champions League night. After being out of it for so long, you kind of wanted that big one. So it'd be nice to have a decent test early on to sort of maybe prepare yourselves for when it does move into the knockout rounds of it all. I think the main thing I want is just not to have a really tough away game in between the Tottenham and Man City games, which is going to be the first Champions League game. I just want that to be a nice home game. But out of the pot one, City, Munich. Well, can you in this new format? Can you play against teams in your country?
No, I don't think you can.
No. So it'd be
we are making this all up on the fly, though. We're designing our own Champions League format.
We are. So Munich, Madrid, PSG, Inter, Dortmund, Leipzig, or Barcelona. Who would you want out of that?
Like you say, I would sort of want to test Arsenal, but maybe not sort of unduly test them.
I'm not sure I'd want Madrid.
I could cope without Madrid.
Yeah, I can deal without Madrid.
And I think it'd be quite like one of the interesting things I found about even Bayern Munich is I felt like Bayern Munich. I've just seen them loads, even with Arsenal's lengthy Champions League absence. I'd kind of like, some of the sort of fresher teams that it's been a while. I think Inter Milan would be very fun. Gives us a chance to bust out some features, some pieces on the win in the San Siro. I think there are other ones from a sort of cynical point of view that I think the boost from sort of beating a PSG or a Barcelona kind of would outweigh maybe the difficulty of the game, if you know what I mean. Like if you beat the echo of Barcelona that they will probably be putting out on the pitch next season, I think that would sort of feel like a moment that could boost the squad when, frankly, like Arsenal should really just be better than them. Bologna away would be really fun. I've been there before in was it like in February time? Great city to go to. That would be on my list of trips for certain. So give me Bologna away as well.
Well, there'd be narrative there with Riccardo Calafiori, of course, as well, and Tommy Astu as well. Yeah, Bologna would be fun. That would be a good trip. That would be a fun trip. Right, there's one from Sam from Nigeria. It says, I've always been of the opinion that we need another defender, although you've thought otherwise. I think Calafiori would be an immense addition to our defence because we'll have the luxury of resting our starters without losing the quality. I think the next point of call for Arteta would be a winger or midfield, as those positions need bolstering. What do you guys think? Well, I think it's definitely, if a defender does come through the door first, I think it's a given, isn't it, that a winger and a midfielder, I think, would probably be the next point of call. We've got a question about striker a little bit later on, but I'm still of the opinion now, I'm leaning more towards that I don't think they're going to sign a striker now this summer. I think they'll go more for a winger. But you can never say never. But I think that would definitely be definitely be the next point of call, either a winger, goal scoring winger, or a midfielder.
Yeah, and I just agree with that. I think I think if those two come in well in time for the start of the season, job's a good one. I think you're good to go. Actually, I've got a sort of question of my own off this. Jesus, not in Marbella yet.
He was supposed to be linking up with them. I haven't seen pictures.
Well, he has, yeah. So I mean, with the whole Glastonbury thing, I'm a bit out of it.
He was supposed to be linking it. He was coming this week. With Odegaard was going first, I think, and then I was told that Partey and Jesus were. The plan was that they were going out this week at some point, but I don't know if they're there yet or whatever. But the plan was that they were going to be going out.
Be intrigued to see kind of where he's at, and I think that will also give Arsenal a sense of what they can get from him next season.
Well, he's clearly not had an operation, which they've obviously decided that wasn't needed. Which, I mean, you've got to take as good news. Obviously, there is a fear that right just before the season starts, that they decide that he does need one, like they did last summer, which hopefully won't be the case. But yeah, from I was pretty sure that he probably was going to have one. The way last season panned out towards the end, it just looked like something was going to have to give when it came to his knee. But hopefully he's had a good rest. I've seen he's done lots of stuff while back in South America. He's been posting his fitness updates and stuff like that. So fingers crossed he comes back fully fit, has a good summer, and is ready to really hit the ground running next season, because that would be a huge boost for Arsenal if you could get him back to Jesus season 1 type form. Fraser here says, hi guys, firstly, the fact you're sitting down with James means he survived Glastonbury, which is great.
I couldn't stand up, could I?
This morning some Rashford stories started to resurface about him being allowed to leave. Do you think this is someone that Arsenal could go for? Also, if it came down to being able to sign only one of Rashford or Eze, who would you go for and why? Love the content, keep up the good work. The floor is yours.
First of all, Charles, I realised I haven't had the chance to offer you my condolences over Mikel Arteta, Although I suppose the fact he goes to Bayern,
it softened the blow that he didn't go to Chelsea. That was my main fear. But the fact he's gone to Bayern, although it's not been done yet, it's still not confirmed. But the fact
you're telling me there's still a chance.
The fact he's chosen Bayern and not gone to Chelsea, I'm more than happy with the outcome of that. I just didn't want him going to Chelsea.
Who knows as well? Keep the door still ajar. The door's still a little bit. It's sort of on the thing, and no one's twisted it to close it. I kind of could do that because Rashford or Eze is so easy. Eze in a heartbeat.
Yeah. See, my fear of Elise going to Chelsea has now been replaced by Eze going to Spurs. So I don't want that to happen. I absolutely don't want that to happen. I'm with you.
I love their Archie Gray pickup, by the way. I think
that could be
very good.
I was talking to Sai about that on the golf course yesterday. We were saying it's an interesting one. It's a lot of money for a young kid, but it looks like a decent. Isn't it interesting that none of the big boys went for him? Only the minnows went for him. Like that lot.
You can't say that.
You can.
It's your podcast.
Eze, 100%. I want Eze. He's right on the top of my list now. Elise's gone. I think it'd be great, and I think Arteta could mould him into a hell of a player at Arsenal in his system. I know. Is it you don't agree? Who was I speaking to? Didn't really agree. Didn't really see how he fitted into Arsenal's system, but I think
he's a left eight.
I think exactly that's what I think, and I think he's not natural. He's not like he doesn't walk in and slot into it perfectly. I think you need to work with him to get him used to it. But I think in Arteta and the coaching staff at Arsenal, and his quality, I think it could easily be done, and he could play that role. So, Eze for me, Rashford, it's a pretty hard no, I have to say. Right, one from Amabit here from India. It says teams like Fulham are getting 40 million for 29-year-old Paulinho, whereas we at Arsenal criticised for placing Eddie for 50 million and 30 million for Aaron. Do you believe Arsenal should work on improving the selling capabilities? The fact that we are finding it so difficult to offload our players is a cause for concern. Kieran Tierney, I can understand with the injuries, but at the same time, we're not getting anything for Sambi, Nuno, and we can have players from the past as well. Add Hector and others to that list. Would like to hear your thoughts on it. First of all, it's an amazing deal for Fulham, by the way. Paulinho. I mean, that's an incredible fee for a 29-year-old. Really decent fee for them. It's interesting. They're going to have that money burning a hole in their pocket now, and they're probably going to come knocking on the door in the next couple of weeks for at least one Arsenal player. I would say, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of bid they put in for the much younger type player for him. But yeah, what do you think on this?
I find it really hard to judge. I don't think Arsenal are sort of uniquely bad at selling players, because you see these conversations with almost every other Big Six fan base, especially kind of in the post-Marina Granovskaya era at Chelsea. You also have to bear in mind that, like, the fact that Fulham or the Bayern, who are frankly not a particularly well-run club at the moment, have thrown away a lot of money on João Paulinho doesn't mean that every other club is sort of going to be as wasteful with their cash, so to speak. It's very hard when everyone knows that. I mean, the other point is Fulham would, whilst they were willing to sanction that deal, all the word I heard was that, they weren't going to stand in Paulinho's way. They would be pretty comfortable with the option marked keep João Paulinho, whereas everyone sort of knows that Arsenal are very much ready to move on from Eddie Nketiah and Aaron Ramsdale, and they're not going to get many minutes if they stay. These are not prized assets. I think if Arsenal sort of, let's say, we're looking at like cashing in on one of their star names, everyone will be going, wow, Edu's got a great deal. Well, they probably wouldn't, but there might be praise for Edu at the end of a deal for how much money he's got. But when everyone knows you want to sell a player, you don't get a lot of money most of the time.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good shout. It's very different selling one of your star names, first names on the team sheet, than selling a player who everyone in the whole world knows you're trying to get rid of and hasn't played any games basically for the last year. So it is different. It is difficult, no doubt about it. What we got now? We got one from Harj. He says, "Hi, Charles and James. If we do end up selling Nketiah this summer, do you think we might try and get Osimhen late on? I think he would offer a different type running in behind. He's also very good in the air, so it would be a threat from crosses. I think if we had someone like Kimmich with his half-space crosses and Osimhen to get on the end of them, it would take us to another level. I mean, look, certainly if you're adding Kimmich and Osimhen to a squad, then you're going to be improving things. Do I think it will happen? No, I don't. And if it were to happen, it would take Napoli to drastically lower what they want for him, and throw the release clause out the window and enter into the negotiations. But I just can't see it happening. We know there's been interest in the past from Arsenal, but no, I'd be very, very surprised. You never know. I can never sit and rule anything out, but I don't see them. I don't see them doing that.
Yeah, what you said basically. I think unless Arsenal got really big money, as well as what you were saying about the release clause dropping a bit, because that would be a club record fee for them. I think if those things don't change, it doesn't all sort of quite add up financially, and does it all fit together in the squad? Osimhen in, and then what you're putting Havertz down to left 8, but you've got Kimmich as well. I mean, it's one of those things. It would be brilliant on FIFA or Football Manager. I mean, Football Manager's too realistic nowadays. It'd be brilliant on FIFA. But I think there is a sort of really tight line to thread of sort of having really good options at every position and being in a position where you can't fit all of Rice, Havertz, Kimmich, Osimhen into one team. That's just wasting money.
Yeah. I'm intrigued what happens with Osimhen, because it sounds like Napoli, are very keen to get him out to basically fund a bit of a revamp there. But, no one's going to go near that release clause at the moment. So it would be interesting if they hold
and he doesn't want to go to Saudi, who also aren't going to go near that release clause.
No, you wouldn't have thought so. And Kimmich looks like he's going to be on the move as well at some point this summer. Maybe he's this mysterious mystery German that everyone is talking about at the moment. Who, before anyone asks, I have no clue who that is, if it is someone. And here's one from Mustafi. There you go. That's who it is. It's Mustafi coming back, part of the coaching staff. AFC Jack, now to finish things off, says, morning, Charles and James. Wanted to know both of your expectations for the season ahead. Premier League winners, Champions League winners, FA Cup treble. I'd really like to get the Premier season. What's stopping us? Now, it's a bit early to do predictions, and I'm sure we are going to probably devote a whole episode at some point later on in the summer to our season predictions, not just on where Arsenal finish, but everything, top goal scorer, all that sort of player of the season. But what early expectations for the season ahead? For me, Premier League winners, 100%. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but that's the expectation, and I really genuinely believe they can do it, 100%. And Champions League go far, and I really do want a decent cup run in one of the domestic cups this season. I think it's really important that they actually do that this time. And just, it's really annoyed me how awful they've been in the cups in the last few years, and I think they just need to get themselves into one of those competitions. Just take it seriously, get themselves into the competition, and see what they can do on it. But yeah, Premier League, I genuinely believe they will win the Premier League this season. I'm sure everyone will clip that up and it'll be proved wrong when it doesn't happen. But I really think they're going to win it. They're good enough to win it. Obviously, it's really hard, but they were good enough to win it last season. But they're good enough to win it this season as well. So yeah, I'm sticking my neck on the line and saying Arsenal Premier League winners 2024-25.
I'm with you. I said it at the end of last season. I think they will go and win it. It was really interesting when we had Ødegaard on with us on CBS. One of the things he pointed out was the slow start to the season. You see that. You see Marbella. You see everything that they're doing. The push to get business done in a summer where it's hard to get business done quickly. I think they are looking kind of at Liverpool when they won the league and thinking, what we need to do this time is fly out the blocks. And I think that's what they're going to do.
when you get Spurs City.
They couldn't control that part of it. Yeah. Well, but I mean, if you can do it, then you put yourself in such an authoritative position. The only team that's ever won the title over Man City since Guardiola won it the first time did it by just getting so far ahead of City that they gave up.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be the aim, and I think they might well do that. I think they're going to win the league.
Yeah, I know.
Champions League.
I wonder if Marbella. You see, the whole Marbella thing is really interesting. I think what they've done over there and taking the players over there. But I'm sure it probably wasn't. But when they saw that fixture list and how tough it was early on, they must have thought, we've got to be absolutely bang on it from the start. And like you said, they must have, the way Arteta operates as well and works every single sort of fine margin he wants to try and get the best of, and taking them away for that. The plan just must be for them to be so ready for that start of the season.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think we both think that's probably going to work.
Fingers crossed. What a nice positive way to end this week's show on. Good to have you back, mate. Hope you by tomorrow or the day after you're feeling back to your former.
Then England can make it worse.
Yeah, you can be doing cartwheels down the street when Bukayo Saka nets a last-minute winner against the Swiss on Saturday night. Thanks for watching, everyone. Appreciate your time. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with my usual show. Anything you want me to discuss in that, you know what to do. Get down into the comments below. Until then, see you tomorrow, everyone. James, I'll see you next week, mate. Have a very good weekend. Enjoy the football. Catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.